I used to do lots of things.
I used to do things and I'd say things and Jesus I was evil. Take things and break things and Jesus I was evil. I never shook baby.
Why don't you lead us in, Ben?
You know that song?
No.
It's Rammstein.
Oh.
It's a song with big tits.
Oh.
I'm not even kidding. That's what the song is called in German.
I bet. I mean, didn't they do a porno music video once?
That would not shock me. I don't know that, but that would not shock me at all.
Oh.
It sounds like something that they would do. I know they've gotten like citations for lewd behavior in the United States.
Oh, really? In the U.S.?
Yeah, for like simulating sex acts and stuff on stage. And
oh shit.
Yeah, but anyway, have you done anything non-binary recently, Joe?
I did actually.
What did you do?
No, so last Friday, I think I mentioned on the last podcast, I went to this performance art thing.
Right.
It was actually held at an art gallery in downtown LA. And I'll share some of the videos on Twitter because it's like so many like downtown LA art galleries do this thing where it's a huge warehouse that's been stylized and painted and everything, but it's like a huge space, but there are only 5 statues and 6 paintings sort of thing. Like it's just so bare. So I took a few videos of just this huge space and it's like so little art, and I'm just going, and then I go to like this other gallery and there's the same thing, huge space, very few pieces of work. Oh god. So I'll be sure to share those. But there was like this weird LGBT. It was called the erogenous zone. So it wasn't like explicitly LGBT, but there was a lot of non-binary crap there. It was pretty bad.
Yeah.
But I still had a really good time because even though I had to pay $15 to get in, they had a bunch of free hard kombucha. So I there was like a small pile of cans. I just kept drinking the whole night.
You just like shit your pants?
No, but my stomach did feel like a war zone though. So.
You did take a dump at an art gallery recently, didn't you?
Oh yeah, that was at a private thing. Yeah, at someone's house.
Oh, yeah.
there were no dumps dropped here.
Right.
But I will say that even though it was pretty woke, there wasn't anything that was like explicitly anti-straight white male. It was very pro.
Is it even art then?
I know, tearing down the patriarchy. But one of the other reasons why I had such a great time, in addition to the free alcohol, though, was because there was this chick, and she opened up the thing, and she was like ghetto woke. She wasn't like wealthy woke. She was ghetto woke, and so she was Hispanic. And she got really trashed, and she kept she was sitting next to me, not like flirting with me or anything, but just like, hey, you look like a cool guy. Is it okay if I sit next to you? I'm like, okay, all right.
And then little do you know, I'm not cool at all.
I pulled one over on her, but she. These people think I'm so cool. Well, wait till they get to know me, but she was like, man, this is just some bougie, rich white people art school shit, man. I'm from the ghetto, but she was still super woke. And then so the whole time she's just shit talking this, even though she opened it, she was an opening act for it. And then so she gives me her phone. She's like, hey, want to put your contact in my phone? I was like, okay. So I went to her Instagram, and I just had her sign up for I had her follow the Instagram for the Reckless News.
Oh, okay. Sorry, keep going.
So I had her do that. So yeah, here you go. Hit me up anytime. And then so she's like, God, these people suck, man. Sometimes people just need to be told how much they suck. And I was like, I'll give you $1 if you yell boo. And she goes, okay, yeah, all right, I will. And so she's waiting. I was like, come on, a whole $1. And she goes, a whole $1? Okay. And she goes, boo, boo. So she's booing this act. Only a handful of people noticed, but but it was just I was like, all right, here's your $1, drunk girl. So it ended up being actually pretty fun. We got to follow her on Instagram.
So That's funny you say that because I was on our Instagram, like looking at our followers,
Yeah.
like not on the TRM. I was on my Instagram looking at the TRM Instagram,
Right.
and I saw people on there. I click on them, like they have their pronouns in their bio and they're following us. I'm like, are they sure? Like, and that must have been one of them. But I think there's more than one.
There's
But
one I
I'm
know
like,
for sure, but I didn't spread the word
I
that
was
much.
like-
Probably should have. But
I was like, is she doing it ironically? Like, but that must have been her.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
All
yeah,
right.
so overall it was actually a pretty fun night. I should not have driven home. I had like 6 cans of hard kombucha. I thought because it was kombucha, it was just like, it would
Yeah.
metabolize or something. It was, but luckily
Hmm.
it wasn't a very far drive from home. But
Yeah.
good time. Yeah,
Isn't
so
downtown LA just like a hellscape?
parts of it are. It's so weird, like because like you'll walk there'll be like a really fancy restaurant right next
Yeah.
to like Mad
Like
Max.
Kent City, yeah.
Um,
That's so crazy to me,
Yeah,
but I guess that's just a lot of cities.
yeah. Well, we got a
Like-
mayoral election coming up soon, so things are not going to
Yeah,
change around here.
who's the guy Caruso?
Rick Caruso,
Who's
yeah.
like he's a he's a Republican.
Basically, he changed to Democrat.
Yeah,
right
like
before
he's
that.
not
Yeah.
because you kind of have to be a Democrat, I guess. But like he was a Republican his whole life.
Yeah,
It's like basically you guys are just gonna elect a Republican
yeah.
because he's gonna win, right? Or no? Is it not for sure?
Last
For sure.
poll I saw was he was just a few points ahead of Karen Bass.
Right.
I don't like either of them, but when I went to her website, whenever I see words like equity and social justice in a campaign, it's like, okay, you've disqualified.
It's a hard out.
I don't care for Caruso, but I mean, it's sort of like,
Yeah,
I think I might vote for him, but it's not. I don't know.
it's the same, like more of the same, and like, it's not working.
Right, exactly.
It's just not working. Like that's not what people want to see.
And honestly, California Republicans come off as they're so moderate. They come off as like center left. I think you have to be if you want to be Republican.
Well, it depends what kind of Republican. Like statewide, if you like have your own little district somewhere that you can be harder, right? Like even and like even some parts of like Orange County and stuff like have been Republican for forever. And but I mean that's the different flavors of like different. I mean, I think the left wing on the West Coast is especially insane. Doesn't mean they're like more like Massachusetts is just as liberal and parts of New York, but like it feels like Seattle, Portland, San Francisco, like these are just the craziest types of progressives, even though they're progressives all over. And same with conservatives, like a Midwestern, Ohio, Michigan conservative is different than like a California conservative.
Right.
Yeah.
But
Anyway, so we have. Do you want to talk about anything else on binary, or are you good?
No.
Are you gonna hook up with that girl?
She, they. You mean?
Excuse me.
I think she had two sets of pronouns, like she, they, and they, them, or something.
Depending on like the phases of the moon or something, it'll be she uses these pronouns or what. Did you tell her you're Latinx?
I forgot, but I don't think she really cared. She was a little too drunk. Oh, and just so everyone knows, like she had friends there who were not drunk, so it's not. So I was like, "Hey, should I call you an Uber?" Like, and she's like, "Nah, I got friends." Whatever. And I met the friends, and they seem nice.
So you didn't get fingered, right?
I did not get fingered.
All right, well that's good. So I want to do a Nazi jar inclusion because I like our segments.
Yeah.
So this one is I'm putting this in the Nazi jar, and I'll give you the context.
All right.
It's by the way, it's a blue check. I only really put blue checks in the Nazi jar.
Yeah.
I don't think it's fair to put because it could be like bots if it says like someone or like I don't know. I feel bad if I put someone in there who's not a blue check. Right. But her name is Sherry Jacobus, and she puts quote, "Your daily reminder that fascism is much worse than inflation." So hold on, that by itself, I would not put in the Nazi jar because it's not the fascist jar. It'd be overwhelming if it was fascist.
We'd be rich,
Yes, it'd be Nazi. It's Nazi, Hitler, and Holocaust. So that on its own, but she included with that a photograph of Hitler like walking down a line of soldiers. So I'm counting it. And this was on October 23rd. So Sherry, you owe $1 for the Nazi jar.
Nice.
And that's our latest edition there.
I remember when It was back. It was either when Trump was running for president or like pretty early on in his presidency. Somebody, man, if only we'd started the podcast during that time, we would have been rich with that Nazi jar. But some again, some blue check.
Well, I would have been included in it. I would have been like, Trump's a Hitler. Like, that was me. He just elected a fascist.
Bitch. But some blue check journalists compared Trump to Hitler, but in the stupidest way possible. Look, what he did was like, okay, so let's compare the two. So first off, Hitler actually served in the military, whereas Trump, dodged the military draft in '68. Hitler wrote his own books, whereas Trump, hired ghostwriters. It's like, what the fuck? This is the wrong compare. Like, it was just so stupid. He was Hitler was a vegetarian, whereas Trump had his own line of steaks. But it's just like these are not the comparisons.
I remember, I think I remember that, and we've talked about that before. It's like, so what argument are you trying to make here, dude?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Are you saying this guy's actually worse than Hitler? And I don't know. Hitler's always been the boogeyman for every argument ever, even though. I mean, I think you could argue that like Stalin was just as bad.
Sure.
Not worth the thing. He was just our ally, so it's not the same. All these bastards were pure evil, but it's hilarious.
No,
and I don't know. I almost feel like how can you take yourself seriously if you're gonna say shit like that?
Right, exactly.
And it's one thing if you're some like hair on fire log student and you're mid-20s like I was, but these are like journalists.
Yeah.
or like writers for like big publications with blue check marks and shit. But I don't know. All right. You want to talk about horror movie stuff? Well, we want to wrap it up.
Yeah.
All right. So we're gonna wrap up horror movies for the season, I guess we could say.
Yeah.
I finished with I think definitely a lot less than last year. But I think I got like around 8, 9, 10. We've talked about a bunch of them. Did we talk about Scream 2022 in the last episode?
I don't think so. No,
I don't think so either. I didn't really like it. That's really all I have to say about it. It took meta commentary to like a whole new level. It was too much.
Yeah.
Have you seen it?
No, but that's what I heard. That it just got way too clever than was necessary, and it was just
I mean, I think it thought it was too clever.
Yeah,
it thought it was clever. I think 1996 Scream was clever, and fun about the meta commentary, but that was 24 years ago. And this one, I liked how it had a little bit about the one thing I thought it added to it was the conversation about what the first time I've heard this term, elevated horror, which is like Hereditary, The Witch,
right? A24, like more sophisticated.
A24, Jordan Peele stuff, and then like kind of classic slasher stuff, like the schlocky horror of the 80s and 90s, some of the 70s, and all over, but just kind of gore slash. I think a modern version would be Terrifier, which I haven't seen, but that's what it looks like. I don't think Terrifier is elevated horror. If you've seen it, you can say it's not true, but I don't know. Scream got too much. Of course, and I don't think it's really clever anymore in 2022 to talk about like toxic fandom. I think too many other IPs have done that, and it's really not that interesting anymore.
And also creators are talking about that too. So it is sort of like, like the artist is talking about it and the art is talking about it too. So it just seems a little overkill now. Yeah,
it doesn't seem like it's as topical as it was probably even a few years ago. Like, I feel like it just kind of missed the mark on it. And I don't know if Scream had it is. You also have to remember some movies were affected by COVID, like where they released like years later when they're supposed to.
Right.
But on some things, you really have to hit the mark or it misses. An example is like Black Panther. Like there's a scene in Black Panther where they do like a "what are those" joke. Like, it's like you missed that by like 2 years. Like that reference. You can't do internet memes in a movie that takes a year to make. Unless you add it at the last second because you do a reshoot or something. I don't know. I'll move on from Scream. I gave it a 61, which is like barely recommend, like really only for the Scream franchise fan. I can recommend it. Killer Clowns from Outer Space. I won't do every movie. I'll just do this one and then one more. or maybe 2 more. Killer Clowns from Outer Space. I brought this up a couple of times on the podcast. We brought it up with
Jim Clark.
With Jim Clark. Yeah, I always want to say Dick Wolf. So I was getting because didn't he have that on his Twitter?
Yeah, he had a wolf.
Yeah, Jim. I'm sorry if I referred to you as Dick. It was like Dick Wolf or something. I don't know. That's a joke with the Law and Order guy. But that's what I always see when I picture. But yeah, with Jim Clark, who is our most recent guest, and I was very nervous about this movie. Once a movie goes on my watch list, it's really hard for me to just like delete it without watching it. And I had made the mistake, the mistake of watching the trailer for it on like the feature with Xfinity. I think it's pretty cool, and it's fun to see trailers that are like in a world. Because like you don't see any of that anymore. And if you watch a trailer for a movie from like the 90s, it'll still have that. But I think I watched a trailer and I was like, oh no, like what have I done? I was really hooked by the title and the campiness of it, but I was like, oh shit, I'm gonna hate this thing. Even at like 89 minutes or whatever it is, I'm gonna hate it. I watched it. It was actually really fun. Yeah. Very enjoyable. The effects were way better than I thought. Maybe the trailer did a disservice with what I saw for the effects. The effects were awesome. Like the clowns are terrifying and really well done. It's campy, but it's not ridiculous. And it's actually pretty scary. I'm not one of those people who's just like afraid of clowns. Like I don't like them, but it's not like, oh, clown, I'm automatically afraid. It's not like a fear for me.
Right.
But these clowns were really scary and really gruesome, and I loved how they incorporated different kind of clown tropes into the movie, but in like a horror way. So like shadow puppets and balloon animals that come alive, and they like the way they kill you is with like a cotton candy cocoons, and then they eat they use you for sustenance. And I don't know, it didn't have to make sense, but still really fun. And I love Clownzilla. That guy was awesome. And it was just like a fun, some of it's dumb, but it was like a fun movie. I like that actress. I'd seen her in a couple Seinfeld episodes.
Okay.
Yeah, she's a white supremacist in one of them. Do you remember that episode with George like picks up a limousine? It's for white supremacists, and that's a good episode. So anyway, if you're not sure about Killer Clowns from Outer Space, you like campy horror. It's late 80s, so it's all practical effects, I think. No, I mean there might be some not. I mean, it wouldn't be computer generated then, but
no, it's too small budget for that. But
but it's very cool, very fun, and I recommend. I give it an 81, which is very good.
One of my favorite scenes is when the clown is using the police chief as like a puppet. And he had
that scene is so fucked. That was like one of the more horror scenes. Like covering people in cotton candy and whatever. It's like it's obviously horrific. They suffocate to death, but like a lot of horror is visual, and that's more of like a mental. Like that was really sick and sweet. And I thought it was real. But another scene that's really scary was the clown like waiting outside the restaurant or ice cream shop and like luring the girl, like a little girl. That was really creepy. But really cool. I didn't realize. So is it Kyoto or Kyoto?
I believe it's Kyoto. The Kyoto brothers. But
Italians, not Japanese. Because when I heard Kyoto at first, I thought like the city in Japan. I'm like, Japanese. No, they're a bunch of Italians from New York, I think. I'm assuming they're Italian. But they did like Team America, right?
They did the puppets for Team America.
And they're I want to check out more of their stuff because I was really impressed with that movie.
No, that's a fun one. It's been a while since I've seen it. I did, like I mentioned, I did go to the Universal Horror Nights thing last Saturday night. That was a lot of fun. That was cool. And they had like a Halloween themed maze, as in like Michael Myers.
Right.
And we got to go up to the steps of the Psycho House in Norman Bates. We got a picture taken.
The actual house?
Yeah.
Where's that?
It's on the Universal Studios.
It's on like the lot.
Yeah, it's cool. So the Bates Motel and then the house on the hill above it, or just behind it, like they're still there.
They just like sit there.
Yes. So Universal Studios, they have a tram that takes you around like, oh, this is where they filmed the TV show for this, and this is where they filmed.
Mm.
So Jordan Peele's Nope, they shot like. Have you seen that yet?
I have not. It's on my list. I haven't seen it yet.
I haven't seen it yet either, but this is not a big spoiler, but there is like a sort of cowboy themed park in the movie.
I know that.
Yeah, so that's actually at Universal Studios, and so you actually got to walk around the set and everything.
Yeah, isn't it about like a family who used to train horses like for movies?
Yeah.
I listened to a podcast about it, so I kind of know a lot of what happens, but I still want to see it.
Yeah.
I've heard mixed reviews. I don't know. I like Jordan Peele movies, but I don't think it's like the most brilliant shit ever.
Yeah,
I don't, and maybe that's because I'm not black. Like that's fine, but I don't think they're like brilliant. I think they're really good. And I think they're different. But I don't know. I think so. Even in Scream, they were like anything by Jordan Peele. I'm like anything. Like Candyman was like Revelate. Like, come on.
Yeah.
It feels a little pandering. I thought Get Out was unique and cool. I thought Us was fine. Like
Us was cool. I liked it, but I still haven't seen Get Out. Everyone keeps telling me I need to watch it, so I'll check that out soon. What I do like about Jordan Peele as a director, I think he's terrific. I think he's he's really into like putting the camera in interesting places, and he'll do interesting stuff with sound and music. Okay. So I'm like, okay, like he's definitely talented as a director from a very artistic standpoint there.
Yeah,
but
I feel like you and your your friend and roommate or you guys catch that stuff more than I do. Like maybe I have an appreciation for the more technical side of movie making.
Yeah.
I think what most people, when they're making these claims, they're more talking about like the story and the plot and those sorts of things. So like the message, which like I think they're good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And definitely some of the better elevated horror. Let's use that. We can use that term now.
Yeah.
Out there. I mean, I would put Ari Aster movies ahead of it, like, and some of this other stuff that I think is much better.
Yeah. Let's see what else. I haven't watched too many horror movies this month. I think.
Well, that was your homework, Joe. So you fail.
I'm trying to think if I watched. Oh, I did watch The Endless. I know I did mention that, but I watched it again recently, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And I highly recommend it. It's about these two. It's about these two brothers who grew up on a UFO camp. So they were sort of like a doomsday cult camp.
Oh yeah. Were you talking about this last episode?
Yeah.
Okay.
So but I rewatched it this past weekend and I thoroughly enjoyed it.
You rewatched it since when?
The last time I watched it was 5 years ago, maybe.
Oh, okay. I thought you watched it recently. Gotcha.
No, but so yeah, I definitely recommend that one. I definitely appreciated it a lot more this time than the first time. So other horror things. You got any Halloween plans? It's on a Monday night.
Well, okay, not like Halloween Day, but like this weekend. Yeah, I'm gonna be in Brooklyn, which is an awful, horrible place.
Oh, sounds scary.
No, I'm kidding. Brooklyn's fine. It's gigantic. Cool. When people like talk about Brooklyn's like a gigantic city itself. But the last two I wanted to discuss. Have you seen It Comes at Night?
No, I haven't.
All right, you don't have to. So we'll move on from that. And then Night of the Living Dead. I do want to talk a little bit about this because it is a genre setter.
Yep.
This like every zombie movie as we know it comes out of this.
Yep.
Which is really cool. That doesn't mean zombies didn't exist before this, but like zombies used to be more of like a voodoo mind control type thing. It had nothing to do with eating people or really being undead. At least I don't think so. It was more just like being mindless and having no agency.
Right.
But the concept of like either the undead being infected or rising from the grave or whatever and eating and just like kind of traipsing along and eating other people and then turning them, like that all comes from this movie. And that's such a big subgenre in horror, which I love. It's one of my favorites. I know I talk about that a lot. So I have to gush about it a little. Obviously, it's from 1968 and it's independent and low budget. So there's going to be some things that just don't age that well. Some of the acting can be very melodramatic.
Yeah.
But that's okay. Like this movie, the cultural impact of it is so profound.
Yeah.
So one thing I want to know, because we do talk a lot about like identity things on this show, and one thing I really liked. So like I said, it's from 1968, but the protagonist, like the main protagonist, is a black guy.
Yeah.
His name in the movie is actually Ben. The actor's name is Dwayne Jones, and I looked into this a little because in the movie he's literally the only, not just black person, but like only non-white person. Like every other character in the survival group, every zombie that I saw, like that I noticed, and every like person like the kind of cop-led militia that forms at the end is white.
Yeah.
And so it is a big deal that this guy was, he's the protagonist. He's kind of the even-keeled, level-headed, stoic hero of the movie.
Right.
And I was looking at it, and it was like that wasn't to make a statement or anything.
Yeah.
George A. Romero cast him. You know why?
Wasn't because like he was the best actor that we knew or something.
He was the best actor.
Yeah.
He was just the best at the role. It's not like they had we need a black actor for this role, and that doesn't mean like you can't have political stances in movies. Like that happens all the time, and that's fine too. But we always say it's kind of overdone now. And that was like, oh no, we just wrote this character as this really strong, level-headed guy who tries to, do what's best and basically just survive this zombie apocalypse. And the best actor for the job was just a black guy.
Yeah.
And another part of it wasn't like it was some Sidney Poitier, who was a very famous actor at the time. He was famous in the 60s. Yeah, he was already very famous at that time, and it wasn't like a Denzel Washington or some A-lister. He was did I say his name? Dwayne Jones. He was unknown actually. He was a theater actor.
Yeah,
and he was the best one. I think that kind of speaks to a lot of what we talk about on this show.
Right.
Now I don't know if the last scene. I'll look into it more. You've seen the movie, right?
Yeah.
And it's been out forever, so spoilers. The ending is so fucking jaw-dropping.
Yeah.
Do you remember that Ben just gets shot?
Yeah.
And he survived this whole thing. Everyone else has gotten taken out.
Yeah.
He survives. The police are coming through, just like shooting all the zombies. Like it's over. And someone just shoots him in the head from far away, thinking he was a zombie.
Yeah.
And it just ends. And they just kind of drag him out and dump him on the pile of bodies. And I don't know if that's not a statement for the time. Like maybe after they cast Dwayne Jones, they wrote that scene in. That to me had to be political.
Yeah.
That like the black man can survive all of this shit and beat out everyone else and still just dies at the end. I don't know though, or was it written that character dies anyway? And of course it happens to be. I don't know. Very interesting though. Also some funny line that I don't know if it was intentional, because it's not a funny movie. There's there's absolutely no comedic relief. And there's this scene where the newscaster, who was a real newscaster in Western Pennsylvania where it was shot.
Chili Billy, right?
Yeah, Chili Billy.
Yeah.
And he just asks the head cop leading the militia or the posse is like, so when do you think you're gonna get all this wrapped up? Wrapped up? It's a zombie apocalypse. And the guy answers I don't know, maybe in a day or something. You have no idea what's going on. Some chemical or something from Venus that came back from the Earth just created these flesh-eating monsters, and you just ballpark when you're gonna get this wrapped up. I don't know if that was meant to be funny or not. It was so. I was dying laughing. Do they seriously just say that? But
they were still working out the zombie mythos, how zombies worked at the time.
Yeah. And by the way, I thought it was fun. I didn't know this till actually the word zombie does not appear in the movie.
Right. Yeah.
They just say ghoul and monster, and of course they're calling murders at first. They don't know what's going on, but I mean, I love and one thing I don't like my favorite zombies, as in what I think make the best movie, are Dawn of the Dead from 2004 zombies. Those are my favorites. They're overall dumb, but when they see something, they can move fast, they can move pretty quickly. But besides that, they're really dumb. And those are my favorite ones. Shaun of the Dead zombies are a little too slow and dumb for me.
Yeah.
28 Days Later, they're like kind of not even zombies, and more just like
Psychopathic.
like psychopath, yeah, like berserkers. Like those are terrifying in their own way, but I don't want every zombie movie. Like I don't even really think of them as zombies.
Yeah.
Dawn of the Dead 2004 zombies are my favorite, and these are close to that. But one of the things that I hate when zombie movies do this, I can't fucking stand, is when they use weapons or tools. Like that just bothers me.
Yeah.
Like because to me that's just a slippery slope to, like, if they can use a tool, like, are they really, these are like dead people. I don't know. I guess there could be an argument like they're not fully dead. It's just like the most kind of primitive form of them, and fine, but I don't like it.
Yeah.
And to me, in this one, the vast majority of the time they're not using tools. So why aren't they always using them or not? But I don't know. That was my one kind of that was one critique of the zombies themselves. Because besides that, I think they're pretty good. Pretty standard, like afraid of fire.
Yeah.
Shoot them in the head, scramble their brains, dumb. But when they get attacked, like focused on something, they just kind of go for it.
Yeah. Night of the Living Dead will always hold a special place in my heart because I think that was the first horror movie to ever like truly terrify me as a kid. Like I think I watched it when I was like 8 or 9 years old.
Okay.
So I think that's probably the source of my horror obsession. It is pretty gory. Like there's that scene where like that young couple, they go out in the truck and then the truck blows up and then all the zombies are eating. They're like fighting over intestines and shit.
Yeah, the girl too, and it's kind of jarring because it's like the attractive girl.
Yeah.
Like you wouldn't think she's the one getting ripped to shreds.
Yeah.
Usually that's a different character.
Right. Yeah, but it's interesting that, George A. Romero, how he set out to use, and it actually makes a lot of sense where because he made a bunch of he made I think 5 or 6 dead movies. And so, but it also makes sense that to have zombies as your social as a source of social commentary, where it's like they're us, but it's like a more stripped down, like this is who we really are, like under civility. So with that one, it's interesting that obviously the race thing was as we mentioned, it was kind of coincidental. But I watched an interview with him a while back, and he was talking about how he's like, yeah, like when we were shooting that movie, like we were all like in our 20s and 30s, we we're all fairly young and iconoclastic and rebellious. So we were talking a lot about the changes that was going on in America. So for us, like I saw the zombies as like a new generation, eating away the old generation. He didn't go into too much detail, but I don't know if he meant it as sort of like this is like the hippie generation, or maybe like this is the youth generation that's taken back. That's finally having a larger voice in America. I don't know if he was saying it was good or bad, but I don't know. Or maybe it was sort of general, like things are changing and there's nothing we can really do to stop this change. So maybe that's kind of the general thing of it. I kind of like it. I kind of prefer not knowing too much about it. Like I'd rather kind of watch it and puzzle over it.
It's also fun when sometimes a movie can be more of like a Rorschach test. Like, how do you interpret this? It doesn't always have to be, because I think especially nowadays it's like so obvious what that's like. Okay, we get it. It's a feminist superhero. Like we know she can do it on her own. She doesn't need the man. We get that. Like it's and there have been awesome feminist heroes for 30 years. Like we always bring up Alien. Like Sigourney Weaver in Alien is like the perfect feminist icon. She's badass. She she survives. She defeats not just one alien, the first one, but like many aliens.
But she's not just a male surrogate either. Like she also has the maternal instinct as an alien. So she's
she's her own thing. I mean, and that's she defeats the queen, and she still saves the child and the cat. Awesome. Like finally the cat doesn't fucking die in the movie. And yes, and I think that's why and that was Alien was 1978, 1979. So and I actually think Aliens is the best. I love Aliens.
Aliens kicks
I
ass,
think Alien is great, but Aliens is like one of my favorite movies. It's so fucking good.
I love that one.
Is that Night of the Living Dead? Oh, the last thing about zombies. I read one time and I thought this. I have no idea where I read this, but like one of our attractions to zombie movies is it kind of amplifies our desire to kill each other, but in a guilt-free way. Because like it is a human, it's not like killing a monster, which is something totally different. Like a zombie is just us, but it's like a license to kill, basically.
Which
is
very
yeah, it's a very cool concept. It's like, yeah, you get to go shoot all these people in the head, and you're actually doing a good thing.
Right.
Which is very rare.
Did you ever watch any of George A. Romero's other zombie movies, like Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead?
I want to say yes, but I can't remember which one. I think I've seen Day of the Dead.
Yeah, that's one where they're in the military bunker.
Yeah, yes, I think I've seen that one.
It's cool. Like,
well, they remade that one not that long ago, right?
Yeah. I think all of them have been remade almost.
Yeah,
but it's cool. He had kind of an interesting approach. He said, like, almost every decade he made a Living Dead movie, and it was sort of commentate, to do some commentary on what's going on in America. So, like, in the 60s, like radical change, that was kind of what influenced Night of the Living Dead. And then in the late 70s, when shopping malls first opened, then he saw that as like this extreme commercialization and materialism.
That one's more on the nose, I feel like. The shopping mall,
on the nose, yeah. And there's definitely there's a line in the movie too. First of all, it's funny how much it dates the movie, because at the time, shopping malls, like indoor shopping malls, had only been around for a few years. So so first of all, like, that's the survivors, that's their first place to go to, right? It's like, oh, let's go to the shopping mall. We'll be safe there. So obviously there's some commentary that, but when they're first approaching, and one of the characters goes, "Well, oh, what's that?" And then another character goes, "Oh, that's one of those shopping malls." It's so new. There just happens to be one.
Well, and now it's funny. And I was reading this. I want to talk about this at some point. I read Christopher Lash's book, who I really like as a political. I don't know. He's like a professor. Well, he passed away a while ago, but he's writing, and a lot of his stuff he's writing in the 80s and 90s, like early 90s, and a lot of it is very like topical for today and prescient. But one thing that's not is like his takes on shopping malls and how and now that's completely reversed.
Yeah.
Either people have largely actually returned to Main Street, like that local feel, or they just buy everything online, which is more of it. But shopping malls have gotten the shaft of everything, because they don't offer either of those things, the convenience really, or the kind of local feel. Right. And that was one thing that I'm like, all right, this one did not age well. I'm just gonna skip over like the kind of Gen X consumerism, like 90s thing that hasn't really transferred to today.
Right.
What's the 70s? Dawn of the Dead came after Night of the Living Dead.
Yeah, came out in 78, I think, and then Day of the Dead came out in 85. And that one had a more that one was still pretty obvious. There's a lot of commentary on like the military industrial complex. Right. But what's funny though is that so Night of the Living Dead, they forgot to copyright the film, I believe. So there were so many. So there were so many. So like no studio owns it, so everybody can just make copies of it very freely. So there's the market is just flooded with DVDs and Blu-rays of just unofficial like versions of Dawn.
Yeah, because I feel like when I was looking on the TV, like there were more than one. Yes. And like not necessarily I don't know. Did he remake it in 1990? He
did. Yeah.
Okay, so that was his. All right.
But because of that, there have been a whole bunch of like unofficial sequels and spin-offs.
Yeah.
So the guy, the first zombie at the beginning, the one who was like in the cemetery.
Yeah.
That actor. Yeah. Bill Hinsman. He went on to more or less kind of do like an indirect sequel to his own indirect sequel later on in the 80s called Flesh Eater. And it was like he was like the last surviving zombie. I think he's basically revisiting his character like 18 years later or something. Yeah. And so like he's like this one surviving zombie, and he gets dug up, and then he starts eating and chewing some horny teenagers.
Gotcha.
And then there's Return of the Living Dead, which is co-written by the co-writer of Night of the Living Dead, but he was like, "Hey, I'm going to do my own version of my own sequel." And they even mentioned, but Return of the Living Dead is more of a comedy. But they even mentioned Night of the Living Dead, like, "Hey, remember that movie from '68?" Turns out it was actually based on a true story. So like, so it's just funny, like because of the copyright thing, everyone can just kind of do their own spin-offs and remakes and sequels to it.
Yeah.
But so copyright your zombie movies.
That's right. Well, are you writing a screenplay or not?
I am, yes.
All right, good. We'll copyright it.
Yeah.
Make sure you do that. But anything else? Because this will be it for horror for a year. I don't want to talk about it anymore.
Yeah. No,
I'm kidding.
We'll never talk about anything horror. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's it for me, man.
All right. Let's move on to the next topic, which is the end of civilization.
Yes.
What do I mean by that, Joe?
The Terminators know how to paint and sing now. So
yeah, it's like the one thing humanity has left, which is art, and for not much longer. So, okay, do you want me to recap it, or do you want to?
yeah, you can go for it. Yeah.
Okay, well, in Colorado at the Colorado State Fair, I still don't know if that means Colorado State University or like the state of Colorado's fair.
Yeah.
I'm gonna read this. This is from August 31st, which I thought was a lot more recent. But anyway, a piece of digital artwork that won first place in a competition has some people in our community concerned. This guy named Jason M. Allen created a piece called Teatro d'Opera Spatiale, or Space Opera Theater, which I'm going to call that. He used the online art program called Midjourney. Do you know anything about Midjourney?
A little bit. I've been following a lot of AI artists lately. From what I understand, the way it works is that you just feed it descriptions, and then it creates digital versions of it, and then you can edit it and you can touch them up and everything like that.
Yeah. So that's the gist of it. You basically put in words, you plug in words, and it makes art.
Yeah.
My reaction to this, so my knee-jerk reaction, which is usually always correct, is that this is godless and horrible, and we should stop it at all costs.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I still feel that way precisely, but I do think that this should be separate from other art.
Yeah.
Let's compare it to something else. Let's say hypothetically you had a man swimming against women in college. Tell me if this sounds familiar. Well, it doesn't seem very fair. To some might say that's not necessarily fair because of attributes that male swimmer has that the other swimmers don't possess.
Right.
I think it's very similar here to AI art. I don't think it takes the same kind of talent. Then obviously hand created art. I mean, when you're in a museum, I love museums. We talk about it. Like, I don't know. I am one of those people just like, so look at art. I was just in the Louvre. I go to a bunch of museums in the city, and like a human being made that.
Yeah.
Like that is so incredible to me. I remember when I was talking about the episode, when we had the episode after I got back from Paris, and the size of some of these pieces, and like a human, probably a small human, because people were smaller back then, were like painted this with a brush, and it's unbelievable, or sculpted this out of clay or chiseled it from a piece of a slab of marble. Like there's something to that. And another, and I'll get back to that precisely, the art, but another thing I compare to is music. And here's where maybe this is where I think that there can be appreciation for both. I look at music like, let's say, a band that has a singer and a guitarist and a bassist and a drummer, or a quartet, or an opera, whatever it is. Like I think of that music differently than I think of like a EDM DJ. Doesn't mean that can't be enjoyable, but no, I'm sorry, it's not the same thing. It's not the same kind of talent mixing beats to learning how to play guitar, or learning how to like write a symphony or whatever it is. Like, and so maybe my reaction of get rid of, like, okay, we shouldn't get rid of it, of course.
Sure.
And I'll give an example of something I like, but like they definitely should not be in competition with each other.
Right.
I don't even know, like, and I listened to a very short, you can tell they clipped it, interview with the quote unquote artist here.
Yeah.
And he's like, I spent 80 hours on this. I'm sure he inflated that, but like, but I was putting in words like, and I forget the words he uses, but basically it's just like flip open a thesaurus, and he's like saying adjectives, and like, okay, like trial and error. Like, is that, I mean, no, it's not like trial and error painting a portrait or a landscape or something. And that shouldn't be in competition with someone who uses a paintbrush or a pencil or whatever it is.
Right, because I mean, being a painter, it's not just, like I like AI art, but I definitely fully agree with you, and like it's like I don't appreciate it for looking at a Monet painting, like it's like, because AI art, it's like it's removing the tactile element in painting, because it's not just, oh, you find a color you like and then you find the subject and then there it is. It's like, no, you actually have to have technique, and you have to understanding of color, and you have to interact with color in a very physical way. Whereas with computers, and sure, like it does require some talent and requires creative decisions, but it's like, it's you're interacting with your mouse. And a cursor, whereas like a painting, it's like you actually have to, we talked about, like, when it's like you have like this massive painting, and people were relatively smaller, hundreds of years ago. It's like, shit, like that was incredibly difficult. Like, how do you like stretch to the middle of the painting when you're 5'4" or whatever,
it's the human element. It's
yes.
like, okay, trial and error. Like a painter doesn't get that.
Right.
Like maybe they don't get trial and error. Maybe you have to be perfect quicker.
Yeah.
Right. Maybe like you only get so many chances, and the sometimes the imperfections are what make it beautiful.
Yes.
or give it, or not every piece of art is a still life or like a realism. Like I think there's beauty in realism, definitely, but some of it is the quirkiness of it, or
yes.
the whatever, like the surrealism of it. And I really think like we're going down the wrong path here if we don't have art as humanity.
Right.
Like, what the fuck do we have? Like,
right.
just reproduce and gorge on food and drink, and let automation take care of everything else. Like, I mean, this is one of the most beautiful things that human, over thousands and thousands and thousands of years, through war and famine and disease and all of this shit that we go through, and even more minor shit like jealousy and vengeance and whatever, like all these terrible things that we do to each other, we still have art.
Right.
Like that's amazing.
Yes.
We have statues and art, as in also like architecture. Like we have humans still. I hope we still have human architects who use their visions to create things. Of course, humans aren't the slaves aren't pulling blocks up the pyramid or whatever. Like we have more automated things to do, but that's to create something that came from humanity, not from a computer.
Right.
And I really think this is this is going to backfire if we go down this slope. Like I'm against. I'm not the first one to say this, but I'm against this like Ready Player One, metaverse, go into like, no, life is beautiful, and we have to like find the beauty, even when it's dark. Like we have to find the beauty in our lives, and sometimes that's hard. Like art helps.
Yes.
And to know that someone else created this thing, even if that person lived 600 years ago, like you have that human connection to that person who somewhere in Florence, Italy, or in Brazil or in Japan, like made this with their hands and thought it up in their brain and made it with their hands. And now it's in a museum in Paris, France. Like that's amazing.
Right.
And we should hold on to that.
Yeah. I mean, because these are, incredibly effective forms of personal self-expression. And it's like, like I said, there are elements of AI art that I like, but I like it more just for inspiration for my creative writing. But I'm not sitting there like, oh my God, I'm so moved by this digital painting. So there's a human element to like an actual painting or an actual statue or an actual song that somebody wrote and learned how to play on an instrument, or learn how to play with a group, that you don't get with AI generated art and AI generated music. However, I will say I am still cautiously optimistic about the future, and the reason why
that's really dumb of you.
Or maybe just very informed.
It's a really
Ben.
Dumb position for you to have. But go on.
No, well, so Kimmy Katiti and I, we were talking about this, and it actually kind of erupted out of this conversation I was having with her about this. It was a little bit of context though. So when I was in college and I was studying music, I had this music professor, and he pointed out an interesting pattern that music takes, and I'm sure it's the same thing for other eras in art, because I think they all kind of there's a fair amount of overlap, but it's I'll speak more from the music side. But he said, roughly every 100 years, every era, roughly, we would humans would kind of go back and forth between creating music that's more simple and then going towards music that's more complex. And so when you look at when you listen to Renaissance music, there's an emphasis on simplicity and clarity and balance. And then when you get to the Baroque era, it becomes much more intricate and complex, and there's tension and drama. And then we get to the classical era 100 years later or so, it goes back to it's graceful, it's simple, it's easy on the ear. When you get to the Romantic era, it's more personal and it's messy and it's dark and there's more drama and tension. It's complex. When you get to the 20th century music, then we have minimalism. So again, stripping down to going back to simplicity. It's hard to say which era we're in or which part of an era we're in. Like, we don't categorize these things until well after the fact. But I'm wondering, it was a couple of things, a couple of predictions. One, because so much of the 20th century was dominated by sort of simplicity. If we're due for an era in which things become where we gravitate towards creating art that's more complex. And two, I wonder if it will be spurred by AI, because it's sort of like, this will be very popular for a while, but I wonder if people start kind of reacting against it, being like, yeah, it's cool, but it still can't emulate this human element. So I'm going to exaggerate. I'm going to really go dive into the idiomatic elements of my art form that a computer still cannot replicate.
I see what you're saying. That it's kind of like what's it like? The pressure creates a diamond, or like like that sort of, what I'm trying to say, like that concept.
Yeah.
Or maybe the change in the landscape of art will let the cream rise to the top, right?
Yeah.
Is that like what you're saying?
More or less,
that.
yeah.
I get that, and I do want to say, like, there is this piece that I remember I tweeted that I really like. So I'm really a sucker for religious themed art. Like, my Catholicism ranges from being completely sick and disgusted with the church and their cover-ups and really just crestfallen at what they've become, to I'm painting a red cross on my shield ready to retake Jerusalem. It vacillates between those two things. And there's this really cool piece that got tons of 30,000 likes. It's called The Evangelization of Mars. There's this really cool combination of basically astronaut crusaders with giant. I'll go on Twitter and I'll retweet it again. It's giant, it's Mars, so it's this desolate wasteland, but there's a giant light cross, this beaming light of a cross, and this big church, and the astronauts with red crosses on them. It's really cool. This cool because I love space themed art, and I love Christian religious art, not just Christian, but all kind of religious art, a lot of Islamic stuff, Jewish art, and this combination was real. I was like, holy shit, this is awesome.
Yeah.
And I went back and I looked today, and he used Midjourney. And he said, because someone asked him, did you make this? And he's like, I made on Midjourney. I'm like, okay, so I just appreciate that art. That art made me feel something, right? That was cool. I retweeted it. I think I even said the astronaut crusaders was a mashup I didn't know I needed, or something like that. So I like that exists.
Yeah.
I think that's really cool, because maybe someone with a sketchbook or a paintbrush wouldn't go, astronaut crusaders, and paint that. But this guy sitting on a computer would type these things in and create that. So I think there is a market for it. That's very cool. And I can create some really cool things, but it is a different feeling to me. And I think it's different than having a human make human made art.
Totally. Yeah.
And I think that's where I am now, where they just shouldn't be I think that's the biggest issue, is they should not be in competition with each other. That to me is just wrong.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. But I am wondering about the impact that it will have on artists. Will painting become a thing of the past, within a few decades?
How horrible would that be?
It would absolutely be horrible. But I'm wondering if it's still really early, because this is the breakout year for AI arts and music. I don't know if this is something that's just going to last for a couple of years, if people are really into it and but everything looks the same now. It's all digital. I'm gonna go back and maybe it has little to no effect in the grand scheme of things, or if it dominates. I mean, for example, I watched on Disney Plus, they have the Industrial Light and Magic 6-part documentary, which is the visual effects company. ILM is a visual effects company that George Lucas started in the 70s.
Oh, okay.
It was actually like the first independent visual effects company, because at the time effects artists were only working at studios, and so it's really cool. But at the time in the mid 70s, it was all photochemical and practical effects, and then in the late 80s and early 90s, that's when they switched to CGI. And they were gradually moving towards CGI. And there's a moment in the documentary where the head of the computer graphics department tells like the model making department, you guys probably have about 3 years left before your job's completely obsolete. So either
when was this? 70s?
When they said it was like in the late 80s, early 90s. And they said, yeah, models are probably going to be a thing of the past. Like we can just build this in a computer now. So either join us or get ready to retire in a few years.
Okay.
So I wonder if it's kind of a similar thing like that, where it's like every time there's a new tool or new movement, there's the sort of, this is dangerous and it's going to disrupt everything. But then after a while we go, oh, actually it wasn't that bad.
Well, actually, I think it's a great example you just brought up that I didn't think of. Is I say it all the time, I'm a practical effects whore. Like I love practical effects.
Yeah.
But a lot of the practical effects come from when there was no CGI. And that's why I love movies in the 70s and 80s.
Yeah.
And not like movies like Scanners, and I especially a lot of horror movies, The Thing.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, the original The Thing. And then The Thing's a perfect example, because then they remade it in the 2010s.
Yeah.
And it does not look nearly as good.
Right.
At all. Now, of course, it's much cheaper to be made, but isn't that like everything that's going on right now? Like, haven't we realized that cheaper is not always good? Right. Like that's why so much shit is finally coming home in a way, because like we got so used to cheap shit, but lost the quality. Like, do we really want art to go down that path too?
Right.
So like, yeah, I see what you're saying. Kind of the cream rises to the top, but like, are a lot of movies now? Do they have practical effects?
Well, here's the other thing, though, is that they're like, I don't think CGI is inherently good or bad. I mean, because I've seen a lot of bad CGI, or at least like mediocre CGI that dominates, the Marvel movies or Harry Potter movies or whatever. Sure. But there are a lot of movies that have used CGI in a way that was completely invisible, where you go, oh shit, like because they had a very good filmmaker who knew when to use CGI in a way that actually melded with the story. Like David Fincher uses a lot of CGI to recreate backgrounds and stunts. But because he's such a great filmmaker, he knows how to shoot it. So you're like, oh, so he treated it like a tool and he used that tool correctly. He didn't slam you over the head with it. So I wonder what the future will hold with AI art, because it's like, right now it's very easy overall to see, that painting looks cool, but you could still tell it was digitally done. But maybe at some point we'll get to a point where it's like, oh, there's actually maybe we find a way to kind of balance out, or find a way to integrate AI art in a way that's still creative, but it's not as gimmicky as it is now, or completely takes over. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think this is a constant push pull in every kind of art medium. I know Tarantino, like he's real into like movies saw film versus digital. And I understand like film is a totally different animal. Like even I know that. Like it's totally different to shoot on film, and it's way more tedious, but you get a different product. Right. And now how many people shoot on film? Like
very few. Chris Nolan, like
right, and they're already extremely wealthy and successful, right?
So they can afford to get the studio. It's like, hey, let me shoot on film.
Exactly, because they know the risk is, well, they're going to make their money, at least that, because it's Christopher Nolan or it's Quentin Tarantino.
Right.
I don't know. I really don't want visual art to go down this way too much, because I think it's gonna. I don't see it going well. And one, I want to add one other thing that I think it's overlooked in all of this is like, I don't know if writing will ever get to this, but that's like my medium. That's how I express my art.
Yeah.
And like when you read a book, a novel or whatever, like there's motivation in knowing that a human made this.
Yeah.
And that someone, like with writing, you can't fake it. Like you have to give draft after draft and edits and fight writer's block. And go through, like, you have to go through that.
Yeah.
And it is motivating to like, you read a novel and like, man, I want to write like this. Like, I want to create something like this.
Yeah.
And I think that gets lost if everything is just plugging words into an algorithm. And I want to read it because I went back to the article. This is what the artist says. And maybe he's not the best spokesperson for his own medium here, but he goes, Alan said he authored the piece using trial and error and creative words and prompts. Quote, "It's creative writing. It's a form of artistry. I used really colorful, artistic words like elegant, opulent, lavish. I want something really beautiful, just an amazing scene that you would want to watch at an opera." Like, he just plugged in adjectives.
Yeah.
And the piece of art, like, it looks cool. Like, I like it. It's similar to the evangelization of Mars piece. It's like sci-fi and futuristic, but using like, opera is such an old form of music. So like that juxtaposition, same thing with like the religion and the astronauts. Like, that's I really like that concept, but like, that should not be competing against someone who mix paints together and put in that work. So
right.
I don't know. I hope it doesn't go far. I hope there's pushback right away, because I think AI art can only take us so far. Like,
I think so too. You know, a potential fringe benefit is that it gets people interested in art, though.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, for example, like you know, I don't love or hate the Harry Potter book series, but I'm glad that, you know, they inspired a generation of kids to read.
I feel the same way.
And so I wonder with this, it's like, you know, someone might be, oh yeah, it's fun playing on a computer, but you know, it might be fun to get a canvas and you know, I mean, I hope it doesn't. So for example, it's like, take records. Like, records have started to become more popular in vinyl and everything.
Yeah.
But there's something that is sort of like, it just feels like a hipster vintage thing. And I hope painting and sculpting and creating actual music don't go that way, where it's like, oh, it's a fun little hipster hobby. It's just like, you know, like, I learned how to play an instrument today. Huh? Isn't that weird? I hope it doesn't go down that way. But I mean, you know, there so maybe seeing like this sort of instantaneous creation of art will inspire people to like actually want to pick up, you know, actual art.
Yeah, I get and I think this is like, I get the instantaneous enjoyment. Like, a lot of times at night, if I'm like sitting on my couch drinking, watching, like, I've watched a movie, it's late, it's like, you know, 1 a.m, and I'm just kind of like watching, I don't know, Modern Family or Rick and Morty or something, Seinfeld, the show I just throw on. I was like, scroll on Pinterest, and I was like, look at stuff I like random shit, like pictures of like Palm Springs, like art about mid-century modern houses or Christian art, or I'll read like quotes on the typewriter font thing, right? That's like, oh, Jack Kerouac quote in the typewriter font thing, and like, it's fun for me. Like, it's like, oh, and I pin them on my own, and I just pin them like for myself to go back and look. And I get that. Like, I think that there is a market for that. I just don't want to see like people stop paint, because then I'll be like, well, what the hell? What the hell's the point?
Right.
So that's it.
But should we talk about that the AI rapper?
There's an AI rapper.
Yeah, FN Mika. I
did hear that there's like a lot of Spotify bands that you don't even realize are AI or something.
Yeah.
Like,
well, this one is the first AI artist to be signed to a major record label, to Capitol Records, of course.
Oh, Jesus.
But listen to the story. So this is on August 12th. AI-powered rapper FN Mika signed a record deal with Capitol Records, becoming the first digital artist to sign with a major label. 11 days later, the deal was terminated amidst calls that the character promoted gross stereotypes of Black culture, as reported by the New York Times. So I like how it wasn't even...
The AI was racist.
I like how it wasn't even like, you know, this is a dumb idea. Like, we're signing a computer to our record, a multi-million-dollar...
I can already see it's either going to be a actual like NPR article or a comical or satirical Babylon Bee article where it's like, it's time we start talking about how racist AI is, or something like that.
Oh yeah.
All right.
Oh, whoops! What the hell is this?
What'd you just do?
I don't know. Yeah, I'm looking at the avatar of the thing. It's just like the most like they just crammed every rapper into one.
I don't need to see AI rap. I don't like regular rap. I don't need to see AI rap. At least most of it. There's some good stuff, but
sure. But yeah, so but I like it was for like it was a woke reason that made them do it. It wasn't like, oh, we came to our senses, signing a computer to you know, one of the largest record labels is a dumb idea. It's like, no, it offended some people. that's why we're not
right.
doing it.
Right, that's why.
I mean, you know, but like you said, like maybe like wokeness will you know alleviate our fears.
Well, a broken clock's correct twice a day. So
yeah.
We'll take it where we can get it.
Exactly. But all right, man. It's the rise of the machines, huh?
Well, maybe there can be AI that can just fill in for me when I don't feel like doing an episode. Just put all of my terms and rants and sayings into an AI and just play that, because people do that like TED Talks. You ever see that? Which is like super funny.
Yeah. I
Like,
don't know. I think our audience would notice. They're like, "Hey, how come your co-host is extra human these days?"
Yeah. Well, because it lost the lizard element. So.
There's that guy. He writes for a bunch of humor publications or something, but like he was doing that thing where it's like, I forced a bot to watch 10,000 hours of something. Those are so fucking
Those are so funny.
funny.
Yeah, like TED Talks. They do that. It's like a 10,000 TED Talks, and that's very funny. I like that, because that's more of like that's like more of a commentary on whatever it is you're doing. Like
exactly
how everything's similar,
cramming all the cliches.
Yeah, it's like not that clever or whatever it is.
Yeah. He released a book of those too.
Did he really?
Yeah.
I'd like to check that out.
Yeah. But all right, everybody, be afraid of the machines that are rising and taking all of our
They
great
will
jobs.
get you. So do not resist. I, for one, welcome our artificial intelligence overlords.
All right. Well,
this is my last episode.
Yeah, being replaced by digital rappers.
Digital rappers.
All right. All right, everybody, stay reckless.
Stay reckless. Fight the crits and AI. Fight them.
Oh yeah, fight the AIs.